The room was already loud, but when the cameras cut in, it turned into thunder. Trump leaned forward over the microphone, his face flushed, stabbing the air with his finger as if he could command silence through sheer force. His voice cracked through the chamber like a whip. "You people don't understand. You never have. I made this country stronger than ever." Gasps and murmurs rippled across the hall, but before the echo even faded, Jasmine Crockett shot back without hesitation. She didn't rise slowly, didn't wait for permission. She stood tall, documents clutched in her hand. Her eyes locked directly on Trump like a spotlight. "You made secret deals with Putin behind America's back. That's what you call strength?" The chamber froze. For a moment it felt as if the oxygen itself had been ripped out of the air. Even the stenographer's hands paused mid-stroke. The tension was unbearable. Live cameras rolling, every network tuned in, the nation holding its breath. Trump's head snapped toward her, his jaw tight, a half-smile twitching on his lips as if he were caught between laughter and rage. He tried to cut her off with another rant, but his voice faltered, broken by the sudden weight of accusation. You're lying. That's a lie?" His words came out ragged, raw, more desperate than powerful. The crowd erupted in noise, some gasping, some shouting, the sound of metal chairs scraping the floor as reporters lunged forward, pressing record. Crockett didn't flinch. She raised the papers high so every lens could see the bold black letters at the top. "Hidden deal. Signed. Dated. Your name tied to Putin's hand." Her words landed like a hammer. The eruption had begun. The chamber trembled with restless noise, but Crockett didn't back down. She stepped closer to the center aisle, the harsh light from the cameras catching the white pages in her hand. The black ink of the memorandum looked almost burned into the paper. She tilted it just enough for the front row and the lenses to read the bold header. "This isn't speculation. This is a signed record of your private talks with Putin, complete with dates and commitments." Gasps tore through the hall like a wave crashing against stone. A few members of Congress shot to their feet, shouting, "Order! Order!" while others leaned forward, straining to glimpse the paper. Reporters' shutters clicked like a hailstorm. The crowd watching online saw every flicker of that page in crystal clarity. Trump lunged toward his microphone, his voice rising with frantic urgency. "That paper is fake. It's garbage. Where did you even get that? This is a witch hunt. Nothing but a witch hunt." But his tone betrayed him. It wasn't the booming confidence his supporters had memorized. It was frantic, uneven. His face reddened, sweat glinting under the lights. His words tangled, and the chamber could feel it. The mask was slipping. Crockett didn't wait. She slammed the paper flat on the desk before her, the sound sharp enough to silence even the angriest shouts. Her voice sliced through the air, firm and merciless. "You want to call this fake? Then explain why your signature matches the one on White House records from that same week. Explain why the Kremlin's internal notes leaked last month describe the exact same commitments you made." The room exploded. Some members pounded their desks, yelling for immediate suspension. Others demanded the sergeant-at-arms restore order. The audience gallery erupted in chaotic cries, cell phones raised high. Trump tried to stand, but his hands shook as he clutched the lectern. His words stumbled, a hoarse mix of denial and anger. "This is outrageous. This is treason against me." But no one heard him clearly over the roar. All anyone saw was the paper held up again, crisp under the spotlight, as Crockett's voice carved through the chaos. "Your hidden deal with Putin is no longer hidden. It's right here, and the American people deserve to see it." The chamber was no longer just a hearing room, it had become an arena. The moment the paper hit the desk, the chamber was no longer a chamber. It was the epicenter of a political earthquake. Phones shot up like weapons. Every reporter, every staffer, even people in the visitors' gallery were filming. Within 34 seconds, the first raw clip hit Twitter. No captions, no edits, just Crockett's words echoing, "Your hidden deal with Putin is no longer hidden." The clip detonated. Notifications lit up screens across the country. Hashtags Judge Putin Deal and Crockett Exposes began trending before the hearing even reached its midpoint. In offices, classrooms, subway cars, people turned their screens toward one another in disbelief. Cable anchors interrupted scheduled programming with urgent voices. Breaking news from the Hill. An explosive confrontation between Jasmine Crockett and Donald Trump over alleged secret agreements with Vladimir Putin. Inside the chamber, the roar didn't stop. Protesters outside the Capitol gates began chanting as the words spread like fire. Reporters from foreign press outlets, BBC, Der Spiegel, Al Jazeera, rushed to beam live updates to their audiences. A French journalist whispered into her phone, said, "Incroyable. It feels like Watergate live on stage." Meanwhile, in the hall, Trump tried to wrestle back control. He pounded the lectern, his voice breaking as he shouted over the din, "Don't listen to her! It's a fraud! All of it! They want to destroy your president!" But the microphones betrayed him. His words were drowned out by the background roar, captured in shaky vertical videos that spread faster than his own denials. Viewers didn't hear his argument. They saw a man cornered, shouting, sweating, trembling against the tide. On TikTok, the 34-second clip gathered millions of views within the first hour. Users looped the exact moment Crockett raised the paper and Trump's face fell. Memes sprouted instantly. Trump's frozen expression next to the phrase, "Deal signed, nation betrayed." Back in the Capitol, aides hurried in and out of side doors, whispering frantically. Crockett remained steady, standing tall, letting the storm rage around her. She didn't need to speak. The silence of her defiance against Trump's chaos told the story better than words. In local diners across the Midwest, the confrontation played on grainy TV sets above counters stacked with coffee cups. A veteran leaned toward his buddy and muttered, "She nailed him," took the fight right to his face. By nightfall, every major outlet carried the same headline, "Crockett confronts Trump with Putin deal, chaos in Congress." And for Trump, no spin, no press release could erase the unedited clip that had already seared itself into the nation's mind. The storm outside the chamber didn't wait. Within an hour, Trump's surrogates were live on Fox, Newsmax, and fringe podcasts hammering the same line. Fake, forged, fabricated. One commentator shouted so loudly his earpiece slipped. "This is another witch hunt, a smear cooked up by the radical left." The word forgery began circulating like a shield, repeated in headlines crafted by sympathetic outlets. Behind the scenes, the war room lit up. Trump's advisors huddled in a cramped office, the air thick with cigar smoke and panic. An aide slammed his palm against the table. "If we let this run, he's finished. We need a counter leak, something to muddy the waters." Another voice, trembling but resolute, suggested, "Discredit the source. Question how Crockett got the memo. Make her the criminal." Meanwhile, Crockett was pulled into a side corridor by two colleagues, their voices lowered to urgent whispers. "They'll come after you now. Every channel, every platform. They'll dig into your life, your family, your past." She exhaled sharply, straightening her jacket. "Let them. If I fall, it'll be with the truth in my hands." The corridor buzzed as her phone vibrated nonstop. Texts from allies, from strangers, from old friends she hadn't spoken to in years. One caught her eye, a message from a former State Department official. "Hold steady. The memo is real. I can vouch. Call me tonight." At the same moment, across town, an emergency broadcast crackled into living rooms. Trump's press secretary stepped up to the podium, his face pale under harsh lights. "We categorically deny these fabricated documents. This is a political stunt, an act of desperation. The president remains focused on the American people." But the words rang hollow. Reporters barked questions, microphones thrust forward. If the document is fake, why does the signature match? Why hasn't Trump answered directly about the meetings with Putin? Will the White House release visitor logs from those dates? The press secretary faltered, stammering rehearsed lines, his eyes darting left and right. Cameras captured the sweat on his forehead. The denial looked weaker than the accusation, and then the unexpected blow. Crockett's phone buzzed again. This time, a call. She recognized the name instantly, a former Republican senator, long retired, once a close Trump ally. She hesitated, then answered. The voice was gravelly, urgent. "You don't know me anymore, but listen. That memo? It's authentic. I saw drafts back in the day. They'll bury you if you're not careful, but don't stop. The country needs this out." Her chest tightened. A shiver ran through her spine. An unlikely ally, breaking the wall of silence. For the first time, she realized she wasn't just exposing Trump. She was cracking open something bigger, a network that had hidden in the shadows for years. Back in the chamber, Trump sat slumped in his chair, whispering furiously with his lawyer. His hands shook as he scrawled notes on a pad. The cameras caught him mid-scribble, the caption appearing seconds later on MSNBC. Trump plots counterattack as evidence mounts. The narrative battle was raging in real time, and for the first time, Trump wasn't fully in control of it. The hearing adjourned for recess, but the chaos did not end. The corridors outside the chamber pulsed with tension, aides rushing, cameras flashing, the low hum of whispered deals. Jasmine Crockett stepped into the hallway, still gripping the memo as if it were a weapon. Security tightened around her. Her phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't an ally. It was a threat. A text from an unknown number, the words sharp and chilling. "You don't know who you're crossing. Drop it now or pay the price." She clenched her jaw, slipping the phone back into her pocket. For a moment, she felt the weight of the machinery against her. A machine that had destroyed others before, but when she raised her eyes, she found something unexpected. A group of veterans stood near the steps, their posture rigid, their expressions carved from stone. They wore jackets patched with old insignia, medals pinned carelessly but proudly. One of them, a grizzled Marine with a cane, stepped forward. His voice cracked but carried through the marble hall. "Don't let him scare you. We fought for this country, not for men who sell it off. You stand up there, you're fighting for us now." The words hit harder than any threat. Crockett nodded, her throat tight, but she didn't speak. She didn't need to. Their presence was a shield stronger than any security detail. Across town, Trump's inner circle was unraveling. In a dimly lit hotel suite, his strategists pounded their phones, issuing orders to sympathetic media. One consultant hissed into the receiver, "Find her weak spot, anything. Old court cases, financial records, family history, drag it all out. She won't survive the smear." Another aide countered, panic edging his voice. "She's trending everywhere. Every time we attack, the clips get bigger. It's like pouring gasoline on fire." Inside the Capitol, Crockett convened a private huddle with her closest allies. The air was heavy with exhaustion and resolve. One colleague whispered urgently, "They'll try to strip you of committee assignments. They'll push ethics charges. They'll bury you in procedure until the story dies." Crockett slammed her hand on the table, her voice sharp as steel. "Then we don't let it die. We take it back to the people, town halls, factory floors, nursing homes. They want to shut me up here, fine. I'll make noise where they can't silence me." That evening, she walked into a modest community hall in Virginia. The room was filled with retirees, union workers, young activists, and veterans who had traveled miles just to see her. No cameras this time, just raw faces and raw emotions. When she held up the memo, the crowd didn't gasp like the chamber. They cheered, long and hard, the sound of ordinary people finding a voice in her defiance. One retired steelworker shouted from the back, "You tell him this isn't politics, this is survival for us. Our jobs, our pensions, our kids' futures." The hall erupted. For the first time that day, Crockett allowed herself a smile. The threat against her felt real, but the backing of the people was louder, heavier, more permanent. Back in Washington, Trump scrolled furiously through his phone, watching the clips from that hall spread online. His face tightened as he muttered under his breath, "She thinks she's got the people? Fine. Let's see how long they stay with her when we turn the fire on full blast." But even he knew. Something had shifted. The more they attacked, the stronger she seemed to grow. The battle was no longer just in the chamber. It was spilling into the streets, into homes, into every place where Americans gathered and spoke. The machine was grinding, but Crockett was still standing. And the people were beginning to stand with her. When the chamber reconvened, the atmosphere was heavier than before. Every seat filled, every camera pointed, every whisper cut short by anticipation. The memo was no longer a rumor. It had become a symbol, carried into living rooms and factories, whispered about in diners and classrooms. The weight of it hung over every lawmaker in the hall. Crockett returned to her seat with deliberate calm. She carried no new props, no theatrics, only her voice, sharpened by days of fire, and the knowledge that millions were watching live. She rose, her hands steady on the desk. Enough denial, enough chaos. The evidence has spoken. The people have spoken. And now this body must act. She lifted her chin and locked her gaze on the speaker. I submit a formal resolution to launch an official investigation into Donald Trump's secret dealings with Vladimir Putin. The words detonated in the chamber. Some members pounded their desks in support, others shouted objections, but the momentum was irreversible. C-SPAN's closed captioning blazed across the screen. Resolution introduced. Investigation into secret Trump-Putin agreement. Trump, crimson-faced, shot to his feet, fists trembling on the lectern. This is tyranny! This is a coup against the President of the United States! But his voice, once a weapon, now sounded desperate, brittle against the roar of the chamber. Lawmakers no longer leaned back to listen. They leaned forward, as if ready to confront him directly. Crockett's voice cut through the din like a blade. You paid in. You earned it. It's your money, your country, and no man, not even Donald Trump, has the right to sell it off in secret. A surge of applause erupted from the gallery. Veterans rose to their feet. Union workers clapped until their palms burned. Retirees wiped tears from their eyes. The chamber was no longer divided between parties. Nay, it was divided between those who stood for the people and those who clung to power. The speaker struck the gavel. Order. The resolution will proceed to vote. In that instant, the tide shifted. Lawmakers who had whispered doubts now raised their hands in public support. The vote was not final, but the message was clear. The machine of Congress was moving, and it was moving against Trump. Cameras zoomed in on his face. His jaw was clenched, his eyes darting between allies who refused to meet his gaze. Slowly, he slumped back into his chair, shoulders sagging under the weight of something he could not shout away. Yet even as the chamber roared with energy, he leaned toward his lawyer and muttered, his voice caught by a hot microphone. This isn't over. They think they've cornered me? I'll burn it all down before I fall. The clip hit social media within minutes, sparking fresh waves of fear and speculation. Was it a threat? A promise? Or simply the last words of a man losing his grip on power? For Crockett, the resolution was more than a political maneuver. It was the transformation of fury into action, of truth into law. For Trump, it was the first public retreat, forced not by backroom deals, but by the roar of the people amplified through one woman's defiance. The battle was not finished, but the ground had shifted forever.